Steve Jobs always loved machines. His father repaired machines for a living. As a child, Steve loved to watch his dad build and fix things. When Steve grew up, he started a company that built machines, not just any machines, but a machine Steve was sure would soon become part of daily life, just like cars and TV sets. What was that machine? A personal computer. Chapter 1: Growing Up in the Valley. In 1954, Joan Schiebel was a graduate student at the University of Wisconsin. She fell in love with a teaching assistant. He was from Syria, and his name was Abdel Fattah Jandali. They were young and had no money, so when Joan learned she was going to have a baby, they decided to put the baby up for adoption. Paul and Clara Jobs wanted a child very much. They adopted the couple's baby and named him Steve Paul Jobs. He was born on February 24, 1955. The Jobses adopted a little girl, Patty. Steve liked his little sister, but they didn't have much in common. The family lived in Mountain View, California. It was a beautiful area full of fruit trees. People called it the Valley of Heart's Delight. At his school, Steve hung around with other kids who loved electronics. He also had a girlfriend, Kristen Brennan. Through the kids in his computer club, Steve met Steve Wozniak, who was several years older. Woz had an amazing talent for making things. He was going to local college and designing computers as a hobby. When Steve graduated from high school in 1972, he enrolled at Reed College in Oregon. There was only one problem. Steve couldn't pay for college, so Steve went to the dean of Reed. He asked if he could live in the dorms and sit in on the classes for free. Why would the dean agree to that? Because Dean was impressed by Steve, and he did say yes. It wasn't an easy life. Steve slept on the floor of his friend's room. He had enough of college life. He wanted to go to India to get money for the trip. He took a job at Atari. It made some of very first computer games. His friend Woz was already working there. By summer, Steve had saved enough to go to India. After the trip, he came back to Atari. Chapter 2: The Birth on Apple. Apple Computers officially went into business on April Fool's Day 1976. Steve was living with his girlfriend, Kristen Brennan, who was an artist. The new company's office was Steve's parents' garage. All the work was done there. They planned to sell Woz circuit boards to people who want to build their own home computers. They built a sample computer with Woz circuit board to show how it worked. They called the computer the Apple. Why did they pick that name? Well, Steve ate a lot of fruit, sometimes nothing but fruit. He thought the apple was the best fruit of all. It was perfect, just like he wanted his computer to be. If most people today saw the Apple computer, they would be stunned. It didn't come with a keyboard, monitor, or case. All the technological improvements were the work of Steve Wozniak, but Steve Jobs' design ideas were just as important. Chapter 3: Up and Down and Out. By 1978, Apple was making money. The company grew quickly. Steve wanted Apple all products to run smoothly. But working with Steve was not easy. Small mistakes made him angry. In 1979, Apple started to make a new home computer that used a mouse. The company hired thousands of employees. Steve worked long hours, and he expected his employees to work hard too. His girlfriend Kristen had a daughter, Lisa, on May 17, 1978. Steve refused to have anything to do with his baby. He had no interest in a family. He and Woz had worked together so closely. Working with other engineers wasn't nearly as satisfying. Steve didn't like someone else telling him what to do. He had hired Scully, hoping that the older man would teach him how to run a big company. After that, Steve expected Scully to hand the reign back to him. Instead, Scully wanted to make more changes. It was May 1985. Steve Jobs lost all the power he had at Apple. He was moved to a new office across the street from most of the other Apple buildings. He rarely saw other employees. Chapter 4: What is next? By 1985, families were starting to buy computers for their homes. College students regularly worked on computers to do schoolwork. Steve Jobs wasn't finished with the computer business. He wanted to show the people at Apple that they were wrong about him. He started a new company. He called it Next. because it was going to be the next step in computers. He hired a famous designer to create a logo for his new company. The logo cost $100,000. Nothing at Next was going the way Steve hoped, but he struggled on. He tried to run the company in a different way from Apple. He called employees members of Next community. Steve had had many girlfriends since Kristen Brenna. One was the famous folk singer Joan Baez. Dating Joan Baez was especially exciting for Steve because she had once been the girlfriend of one of his favorite singers, Bob Dylan. Then in 1990, Steve gave a lecture at Stanford University. In the audience was Lauren Powell. Lauren was a graduate student studying business. A year later, they were married in Yosemite National Park. Steve and Lauren's first child, Reed Paul Jobs, was born in September 1991. He was named after Reed College. Things still weren't going well at Next, but Steve was discovering that life was more than just business. Last chapter, death. Steve had many plans for the future, then something happened that he couldn't control. In 2003, a medical checkup revealed that he had cancer in his pancreas. Time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. These were words that Steve Jobs truly lived by. Perhaps he didn't have much time to live.
Death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be, because death is very likely the single best invention of life. It's life's change agent. It clears out the old to make way for the new. Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
One of the first people to speak about his death was his old friend and competitor Bill Gates. He said, "For those of us lucky enough to get to work with him, it's an insanely great honor." Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the content and found useful information shared here. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel.